You have the link. Okay, I'm gonna make an announcement.
I should sign on to Twitch as well, right, to see.
Well, you just need to watch the stream. Oh yeah, and be in the game. Nice. Okay, so let's just get in the game first, because it's easier to explain when we're in a game.
Yeah, sure.
Julian, get down. Can you hear my dog? Get down.
Yeah.
You can? Okay, get down, get down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's freaking chewing a bone near me, so... Okay, this map isn't very good. There's too much stuff in the way. Let's do a different map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have stream delay on? Or is it
There shouldn't be any delay. Is it delayed?
Let's say about 5 seconds.
About 5 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because we're in a call, so you can.
Yeah. So it doesn't... Should I go anywhere in particular?
No, just stay there. Just skip. I'm gonna talk first. Okay, so basically, I'll skip the first turn because we don't know the wind strength. Oh fuck! I just quit. What have I meant to just skip. Brain fart. Okay, so all right, this map is fine. So basically, like the way that wind works, it's basically, you can think of it like an acceleration. You know, like gravity affects the shot, it pulls it down, it accelerates it down. Wind is basically just another acceleration, but it's in the direction of the arrow, right? So the way that, like, the aimer, right, doesn't compensate for the wind. Yeah, just skip. Yeah, so the aimer doesn't compensate for the wind, obviously. But the way that I calculate wind is basically just like how you would with eraser. If you're familiar with the eraser S2, basically you move where the marker is in the direction opposite the wind. So if it's like to the bottom left as it is now, you move it in the upright direction, right? So you do it like that, and then the wind will compensate in the direction of the wind. Does that make sense?
How far do you know to move?
Yeah, so that's so that's the thing, is the big question is how far do you move the cursor, right? And I'll try to teach that, or I'll teach a way of measuring that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so I guess first you have to understand that concept is basically you move it in the opposite direction of the wind, right? So now the wind is southeast, so you would move it northwest, right? And when you're playing with a bot that's not a racer, that doesn't have that square at the end, you basically you want to align the aimer line so that some part of the aimer line goes through the point where you would be putting it if it was a racer, right? So if it was a racer, I would have moved it like however much 3 is in the northwest direction. Since I'm not playing eraser, I just want to make sure the line goes through that point. As if I had a square aimer thing, like eraser. But obviously I don't, right? So with eraser, I would put it there or somewhere like that, right? So you're assuming I'm aiming for Ice Storm, I'm aiming for like there, but I want to move it like there, right? Okay, so just let me go as arrow again.
Sure.
So with arrow, you obviously don't have that thing, but I want to pretend as if there was a box that I'm like imagining, and then I want to make sure my aimer goes through that location where I'm imagining it. Does that make sense?
Wouldn't the height of the shot determine how much?
Correct. So that is the key here. So the amount that the wind affects the shot is entirely dependent on how high you shoot it. Okay, so because it's an acceleration, the longer the shot is in the air, the more that the acceleration affects the shot. Right? Does that make sense? Like the more time the wind has to affect it, the more it'll be affected by it, right? And then basically the time that a shot takes is dependent on how high you shoot it, right? The higher you shoot it, the more time it's in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip again with eraser. So like I've done the math to it, and basically it's directly proportional to how high the shot goes. The amount that the wind affects it is like directly proportional to how high you shoot it. So if you shoot it twice as high, the wind will move it twice as far. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing
it's based on the time of flight, basically.
Yeah, it's based on the time of flight, but it has a square relationship to the time of flight. If you've taken like physics, you'll know that like gravity is like a like it has like a square relationship to the time. So like if your shot takes twice as long, then the acceleration will be 4 times as much. So it has like a square relationship to it, right?
That's like 9.8.
Exactly, yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
if you factor in the time and the height, if you do the math, then it's directly proportional. So it just has a 1-to-1 relationship with the height. Okay, so like that's the result you can get if you do the math, or if you just play enough, you'll kind of figure it out. Oops, I just got a no input for a while thing. Okay, anybody in chat has any questions so far? So the takeaways right now is you want to like understand how the eraser method of shooting works first. So basically you move it in the opposite direction of the wind.
What is your height reference though?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to it, but I want to make sure like we understand the concepts first. Okay. So I'm inviting you. I got kicked from the match because I didn't.
The invite kind of disappeared already.
All right, I'll do it again.
I went to grab an eraser just so
Okay.
I could see what it's like.
Okay, this map works.
Since I guess with blind wind you don't know the.
Yeah, with blind wind you don't know, so you can just skip. Okay, I'll skip as well. Okay, so it's really low wind. I'll probably wait until it's a higher wind to show how it works. Actually, let's just skip until the wind is horizontal because it's easier to demonstrate that way. So we'll just keep skipping until the wind is horizontal. And then I'll talk about how I use to measure how much the wind is supposed to affect it.
This is
Yeah. So for winds that are up and down, the same concept applies, right? So if the wind is straight up, you basically want to move your aimer so that it's straight below the target. Right now it's not straight up. It's like kind of a bit to the right. Yeah. So again, it like the kind of the key takeaways if you're going to use this method is you have to be very careful to what direction the wind is pointing. I mean, I guess that's true for any method that you use. But yeah, number one, you have to be very careful about which direction the wind is pointing. And then the other is just you kind of have to just take your time and measure it out. So I'm going to skip again because the wind isn't horizontal. Let's just skip until that happens.
The other mobiles, like if you were to aim, let's say, like if it was straight up, straight down, for example, like the precision aimer doesn't go through the body. So let's say,
Yeah.
really know.
Yeah. So that's I'm not going to use the precision aimer here, because the precision aimer, like it's always a set distance, right? Like the width of that precision aimer is always a set distance. It's not dependent on how high you're shooting. Like I could aim really high, and the precision aimer is still the same distance, right? I can aim it low, it's still the same distance. So the precision aimer doesn't really help for most mobiles. I'm just gonna keep passing. Yeah, the key is that I have to change my reference depending on how high I'm shooting. Okay, so how do you gauge like what the reference is, or how do you measure the distance? So I've figured out a trick that's basically based on the UI of your game. So yeah, just pass, and I'll talk about it.
Sure.
So
I ended up shooting.
The UI of the game, like it's different for everybody, I guess. But I think that for most people that are on phones that have like a similar aspect ratio, this reference should work. So how it works is basically using the dimensions of your phone. Okay, so the thing. Okay, I guess I'm running out of time. I'll skip until the next time I have arrow. But I'll talk in the meantime. So the height, basically, what you want is to make your aimer touch the top of your screen. Okay. You see how it's like touching the top of my screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the bottom, like, is you want to make it so that it's right above your item boxes. So that's how I calibrate it. Is like right now you see my gun is right above my that vamp item box. Right? So that's how I calibrate the height, okay? You want to adjust the size of your screen, right? Like zoom in and zoom out so that you get those just right. So the top of it is at the very top of the screen. And then the bottom of it is right above your item box. Or just as close as you can to the top of your item box. Okay. So yeah, just keep skipping. Make sure you skip instead of letting the time run out. Because otherwise you get that timeout thing.
Sure.
Okay. So those are the basics. You want to make the top of your height of your arc touch the top of your screen, and then the bottom of it the item box. Okay. And the next thing to note is that an item now you want to know how much a shot how much one unit of wind is, right? Okay, I'm just shooting randomly here, and that is actually if you calibrate it so that the height is from the bottom of the item box to the top of the screen, the distance that one wind is will be a third of an item box. So if it's 6 wind right now, it's 2 item boxes. So that's kind of the That's kind of the key here. Is one wind unit is a third of an item box. So I'll try it here. Like,
You said
the
one wind is third of an item box?
a third of an item box. So 6 wind would be 2 item boxes. So the distance right now that I need to move my like pretend my I'm aiming at is 6. Like, let's say I'm shooting at your eraser. It's like 2 item boxes in that direction. So I'm just gonna shoot it, and hopefully it'll be relatively close. Okay, that wasn't that close, but it's a much easier if the wind is horizontal, because then you can just use the item, like the width of the item boxes themselves, right? Because that's the, like, if it's strictly horizontal, then you can just use those. Okay, so let's try first. Let's try 7. So yeah, the top of the thing at the top of my screen, and then 7 is like 2 item boxes plus a third. So that's where I'm aiming for. Then I need to move it like 2 and a half item, or 2 and a third item boxes. Okay, so that was perfect shot, right? Yeah, so I guess you can try it some, I guess, if you want. It probably won't like come right away, because it takes some practice as well. And yeah, I'm obviously not expecting somebody who just heard about it to be able to pick it up right away.
So you're saying you want to zoom in each shot, basically?
Yeah, like you have to adjust your screen to each shot. If the wind is pretty similar, then you can just leave your screen the way it is, right? So like you can zoom in and then you can move your screen around if it helps. But to calibrate the screen size first, you want to zoom so that, you know, the bottom is at the top of the item box, and then the top is at the top of the screen. Okay, that was pretty close. Yeah, so I guess I'll shoot a bit more just to demonstrate how I do it. So I'm aiming for you there. Now, when the wind is up or down, that's obviously going to affect it. You can't be right up like at the same point that you would normally do it.
You drop down the power a little bit, right? So that it wouldn't...
Yeah, I actually haven't like there's more to this, but I haven't gotten that. Like I think I kind of just want to kind of familiarize people with the concept first, and then do some practice shots before I talk about the more specific scenarios where there's like a difference in elevation, or like the wind is up or down, or like has an up or down component to it. So this one is fairly horizontal. It's not quite though, I guess. You know, you can try shooting. That was a good shot. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate again. I'll shoot your eraser
to the enemy, right?
Yeah. So this is where I want to shoot, and then 6 is 2 item boxes. It's actually like because there's like kind of a gap between your item boxes. It's actually, you're supposed to count the gaps as well. So it's like 3 win is like item box plus gap. Okay. So six win is like 2 item boxes plus 2 gaps. If that makes sense. And I'll try like shooting a different height just to demonstrate that as well. That's why I picked a arrow, because it can shoot really far, or it can shoot really high and far.
6, so it'd be like an item box and 2/3, I guess.
No, it's 2 item boxes. So 3 is 1 item box, 6 is 2 item box, 9 is 3 item boxes. 12, you kind of have to imagine a third item or a fourth imaginary item box. Just like kind of extrapolate that distance. So yeah, 9, it's 3 item boxes.
Based on what type of mobile, like where the shot comes from, I guess you would adjust the height a little bit.
That's true too, yeah.
As well, right?
Yeah, if you want to be like super precise, you have to factor in everything. So where your shot nozzle is, any height difference there is, all that stuff.
So okay. There it was 9, so I adjusted. I think I adjusted wrong. I moved it 3 item boxes across, which is too many.
Yeah, so I'm gonna shoot at a lower height. I'm zooming in right now because you have to do that for a lower height. But like 9. So kind of 3 item boxes. I'm shooting your armor. Okay, fairly close. Yeah, so it's kind of an eyeball-y method, obviously, but if you're playing mobiles that shoot of a different height all the time, like say you have like a Rockin and you have an Ice Storm or something, right? And one shoots a lot higher than the other. It's kind of hard to have like a good feel for it unless you play it a lot, right? Especially if you're switching between them all the time. So I find like that this method kind of helps to just kind of get you calibrated to how high your mobile shoots. And if you really like, if the wind is really high and you need to make a really important shot, I always use this method because I don't want to miss. Okay, so next I'll talk about different elevations and like up and down winds. Is everyone following so far? Any questions on the chat? Okay. I don't think there's any like questions as to the method that I'm teaching. Okay, so
sorry, I was gonna say like since we're zooming in and out, for example, for every shot.
Yeah.
Depending on like the position of the enemy.
Yeah.
Like it may not fit on the whole screen, right?
Yes, that is true.
Kind of lining it up based on the item boxes.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's one of the cases where it doesn't work so well. Let's say you're like above the enemy and you're super sky shotting and they're really far below you. Then yeah, it's not going to fit on the whole screen. You kind of just have to like it gets pretty hand wavy at this point, but you kind of just have to eyeball it, I guess. Like you can try to do it as close as you can, or maybe do it so that you're doing it like at half the like let's say you kind of know the distance, but you can't zoom out all the way. Maybe you instead you like imagine half the distance, and then everything will just multiply by 2. So if like the wind is like 6, then you'll pretend it's 12, but use the same method. Does that make sense? Like you'll zoom out to where your screen is like half the distance, and then you'll pretend the wind is double. And that kind of just like in the end it all works out. Does that make sense?
Probably have to see it to kind of understand it all better.
Okay, so this map is good for demonstrating different heights. I will do it with malite.
You said with 6 wind like this, it would be 2 item boxes away?
Yep. Or, like, to be very precise, 2 item boxes plus 2 gaps. There you go. Nice.
Okay. Where I kind of get messed up is when there's like different elevations like this. Right?
Yeah, I haven't talked about it yet, but I'm gonna get to it when it's my turn. So yeah, I find like people have the most problem aiming at different elevations, but this method actually works for different elevations once you know how to use it. So like when it's different elevations, I always use this method. I don't do it on feel. I use this method. Okay, so when it's different elevations, the way you do it is you want to find the midpoint between where your target is and where your aimer, where your nozzle is. So like the midpoint right now is like, let's say I'm shooting your mage, right? It's all the way up there. The midpoint is like, like you want to make the midpoint the top at where your top of your item box is, right? So you kind of have to eyeball it again, but you want to like imagine where the midpoint in height between your nozzle and your target, and you want to put that at the bottom, like at where the top of your item box is. Okay, so I'm imagining it right now. It's like somewhere there, approximately. So I want to put that bottom of my item boxes, and then the top of the screen is the top of your arc still. So this is 3, so it's really easy, but let's wait until like there's a stronger wind and I'll demonstrate more.
Can you say that just one more time?
Okay, so the way you do it is when you're shooting at a different elevation or at a different height, the instead of putting the bottom of the item box where you are, you want to imagine the midpoint in height between you and the target, and then put the bottom of your item boxes at the midpoint there.
So it'd be like where the ice for gun thing is, right?
Yes. Yeah. It would be approximately that point. Yep. And then we can just skip until like the wind is stronger. Yeah. Okay. So when the wind is like down like this, so like the midpoint, like where you are and where the target is actually changes depending on the wind. So because the wind is down like this, the point that I'm imagining is like above your mage. Okay. Like that's where the actual target is. Yeah, it's above, like, again, remember eraser form of shooting, right? So you're looking at you're aiming for the place that's opposite direction of what the wind is, right? So because it's down, it's going to be above and to the left of the mage, right? So that's where your actual target is. When I say target, it's actually a place that you're imagining that's in the direction opposite the wind. Okay, and if the wind is up, the target is like, it's below and to the right of the mage right now. So you kind of, again, have to imagine an imaginary target below and above the mage. And then because we're on different elevations, I have to account for, where I am and where the target is, and then move it to calibrate my screen so it's halfway there. So that's pretty much all there is to this method. So I guess we can practice some more and just do some more shots. But I'll try to summarize it. So the first thing you have to understand is the eraser method of opposite direction shooting, right? The next thing you need to know is bottom of your item boxes, top of the screen, right? So that's how you want to calibrate your screen size, your zoom is the bottom of it is where your aimer is. Well, not exactly aimer. So again, because of the difference in elevation, you're actually calibrating it so that the top of your item boxes is the midpoint between your aimer and your target. And again, your target isn't actually the target; it's the imaginary point, where you're aiming for if you were playing Eraser. Okay. And then the top is always at the top of the screen. So the top of the arc is top of the screen. Bottom of the arc, the bottom of the top of the item boxes is the midpoint in height between your aimer and the top of the and the midpoint between your aimer and where you're aiming for.
Since here I'm shooting high to low elevation.
Yep.
Like I'm not able to get you in the shot.
Maybe. Yeah, so first imagine the midpoint and see if you can get the midpoint in the shot.
Which may be Ice Thor.
Yeah, Ice Thor. Or like the bottom of the Ice Thor.
I just don't see where you are on the screen when I move upwards.
Yeah, so like first you have to imagine the midpoint and then just forget about me afterwards. Just try to get it so that it's the midpoint. Okay, I'll try to shoot your armor, I guess. Okay, so the wind is up and to the right, so I'm actually imagining a point. The target is like below and to the left, and then the midpoint would be around there. So then I have to extrapolate the shooter. Hopefully this is right. Okay, it was pretty close. Yeah, any questions? So this method doesn't quite work when there's a tornado. The tornado will amplify the effect of the wind. So it doesn't quite work. You can kind of modify it to make it work, but I haven't quite even got it down. So I'm not gonna really teach it at this point. If you use the tick method, or used to use the tick method, it's a lot better for when there's a tornado. But obviously, like the tick method, you don't have ticks anymore, so you're kind of just estimating anyway. So if you really want an accurate method, like this, I found is the most accurate method. Sometimes it'll miss, but like that's usually due to error in like the person using it or RNG, and it's not really due to the method. I'll try to shoot your armor again. So midpoint is like approximately there-ish. 6 is 2 item boxes in 2 spaces. Yeah. You still there, Apta?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just trying to process everything you're saying.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be playing and watching. I don't know if you're watching the stream, but...
Yeah, I'm trying to watch as well.
Okay.
I think it's a lot to adjust at one
Yeah,
point.
if you're shooting high to low, it's a lot harder than if you're shooting low to high. Do you want to start a new game, and then maybe we'll...
Yeah.
Or I'll let you practice a bit.
Okay. I think it's easier if we start with something with like just flat elevation.
Yeah, definitely. How do I ban people?
I'm going to put the item box just underneath like the armor's nozzle.
Uh-huh.
And then at the top of the screen with the arc with the top of the phone margin. And then this is almost down, right? So
yeah,
it's right at time.
That's fine. I'll skip so you can do more practice. I was trying to remove that spam message. I couldn't figure it out. Yeah, so like when the wind is down, remember the target is actually above the enemy, right? So rather than have the bottom of the item box like where the enemy is or where your nozzle is, you want to find the midpoint between the target and your nozzle, right? So it's not going to be exactly where your nozzle is. It's going to be like, if the wind is down, it's going to be slightly above the target. Okay, so I'll do it with the racer. I'll just try to shoot it really high and maybe demonstrate that it works for a racer as well. Okay, I can't get the whole thing in the screen either, but I'm kind of just guesstimating now. Yeah, maybe I should have shot it lower. Like, so go ahead and try it. You need to, like, if you're shooting my racer, you're gonna have to imagine it like where the explosion cloud is approximately. That should be where the top of your item box should be. The wind is now changed to up. Yeah, so like the position where the bottom of your item box should be, like if you're shooting the eraser, it should probably be like where the arrow is. It's going to be below the eraser. Okay, so let me demonstrate with arrow. So the top of the screen is the top, and then because the wind is up, the target for me, let's say I'm shooting your arrow, or sorry, let's say I'm shooting your armor. It's gonna be below, yeah, it's gonna be like below where the eraser is. So that's what I'm using as the judgment, and then 8 is quite high, so it's like 2 item boxes plus a half. Yeah, and I didn't estimate that very well. Yeah, like 8 is. Let's say I'm using my item boxes right now. It would be like to where the number 2 is on the S break. So it's like from the very left of the dual plus to where the number 2 is. That's the distance that you need to like adjust. That's the distance that you need to displace your shot. For 5, it would be from the left of the dual plus to the second bomb in the multi bombs. That's how far.
Maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're using a eraser, it doesn't. This method doesn't really work, right? The eraser method, it's always a fixed distance, right? So the way that eraser S2 works is that the bomb will like open at the same time every time. Right? So you don't need to adjust your screen or anything. As long as you have like a feel for the distance for eraser, it's going to be the same distance every time. Okay, let's do it with.
Probably should pick a different mobile.
Yeah, eraser was just to demonstrate the method at first.
That was more for just learning about how wind will affect the shot, right?
Exactly, yeah. Eraser was just to teach the eraser method of S2. You can just be our practice dummies. Okay, so this is pretty hard wind because it's like slightly to the right. So I'm shooting your eraser. The point I'm imagining is like all the way under. Finding the midpoint. 9 wind. Yeah, it's a lot of factors. Didn't shoot that very well. Probably because I'm talking at the same time.
It's hard to multitask.
Yeah. Also, like, you know how the wind arrow kind of wiggles? You have to figure out like the right direction. It's gonna be pretty hard because the wind is wiggling. I used to like try to watch the wind wiggle for a bit, and another trick, this is one of my like other tricks. To figure out the actual direction of the wind, you have to watch how it wiggles. It'll like stay in one place for a while, and then it'll like move slightly. And the moving slightly part is always wrong. Like that part is not the real direction. The real direction is like the point where it like wiggles back and forth, but only like a little bit. And then it went like, and then it'll like veer off in a different direction for a bit, and then it'll go back to where like it just wiggles in one spot. So the part where it wiggles in one spot is like the actual direction, and when it veers slightly off is like that's just wrong. Like don't like pretend that's not even there. Okay, so the wind is 9 right now. It like wiggles more downwards and then it veers off to the left. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's more downwards. It's not more to the left. So yeah, it's like really there's a lot of factors to it. So if you want to get good with this, it requires a lot of practice still. Approximately there. Okay, so I shot pretty well that time. Any other questions? What else should I talk about?
Well, just trying to figure out everything here. So by the time I kind of process one thing, I feel I have only like a few seconds to adjust.
Yeah.
The item blocks.
Yeah. And especially if the wind is in this kind of direction, it's really hard. Okay, so this is a decent direction. Okay, I'm this guy. Oh, another thing. So for malite, when you're shooting with malite, you can use the same method if the wind is horizontal. Okay, but you have to divide everything by 4. So like a 7 is just like a 1.5 ish. Yeah, so when the shot is at the peak of the arc, the wind affects it only a quarter as much. So remember how we talked about the square relationship that the wind accelerates it at? At half the time of the shot, it's only a quarter of the displacement. So that's why I'm dividing by 4. Nice, that's a good shot. Okay, so we'll go with 7. I'll shoot your eraser. So the wind is pretty much horizontal, so I can just use the item boxes pretty much. 7 is 2 and a bit.
Right. I have my successes if it's kind of just horizontal.
Yeah.
It's the fixed item boxes, but
yeah.
Once elevation comes into mind, then it's just too much adjusting and not enough time to do it.
Yeah. Oh. So yeah, now it's slightly up, but hopefully you can figure it out. I'll be quiet. Let you focus.
It's a little short. Me. Too much. 7 was 2 item boxes and.
Yeah, 2 item boxes and a bit. So it's like where the left, like if you're gonna use the left of the dual plus, you need to move it. Like the other end would be like where, like let's say the left side of that S brake, like that bullet on the picture. Okay, here the wind is like directly up. It's wiggling a bit. Might be a bit to the left. I'm gonna shoot myself just so that you can get more practice. So yeah, when it's like when you're so close like this, and the wind is mostly up, you don't have to move it much. Like it's almost not at all, right? Because the place you're aiming at is just below where your target is, right? So if you're not shooting very far, like the target's really close, then the wind doesn't affect it much when it's just up. You can also shoot the totems if you want a different target.
Maybe kill the. I was gonna say to kill the eraser so I can bring up the mage.
Okay. So like when you're shooting Eraser S2 and the wind is up, it affects it differently, right? So it rather than like going directly up or anything like that, the upwind actually makes the arc peak later. So you need to aim above, like in front of the target. I'm kind of getting off on a tangent. I don't know if I should have mentioned that. So like when you're playing mobiles like Boomer, Phoenix, Malite S2, those ones where like the shot changes at the peak, the way that the wind affects it is slightly different. You kind of have to figure out a different method for that. I can talk about it in another tutorial maybe. I'll do like a series on different mobiles maybe. Oh, you gave me SS. Okay, so 8. The wind is down and slightly, very slightly to the right. So it's mostly down though. So the peak is there. Though since the wind is down, my target is slightly above you. Somewhere there.
Directly down.
It's not. It's a bit to the right. It's like maybe like 3 or 4 degrees to the right. Yeah. This wind is slightly down again. It's not quite all the way right. It's like maybe like 10 degrees down.
The 2 item boxes and
yeah, almost 3 item boxes. So like where the 2 is on the S break. I'll shoot an item box. So top of the screen, and so I'll line it with the right side of the item box, and then it's 2 2/3. So I'm aiming like where the red bullet is on the dual plus item. Oh, actually, because the wind is slightly down, it's not that far. So I needed to move it a bit. Okay. Yeah, because the wind isn't directly horizontal, it like just using the width of the item boxes isn't such a good idea, right? You kind of have to actually like slant your head maybe, and then yeah, like tilt your head a little bit and then use that. Oh, I think he got dropped from the call. You might be dropped from the call, Abja. I don't know if you're listening to the stream or you have it muted. Okay, so I'm going to shoot this totem. The wind is slightly down. So 2 item boxes. 2 2/3 item boxes. So the wind is, because it's slightly down, it's not going to be at the full width of that. It's going to be less. Shooting that totem. Yeah. Okay, you're back?
Hey, yeah, not sure what happened. Sorry.
No worries. Oh, you killed me.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'll switch out the first mobile.
Okay. Ooh, vastly different elevations.
A different map, right? Or
I mean, it kind of helps for practicing different elevations if you want to do that. But maybe that's a bit too advanced right now. Yeah, let's do a different map. Or you can just shoot like the one on the same elevation.
I already clicked, sorry.
That's fine.
So I found that I wasn't able to reach your desto, like with the zooming screen and whatnot.
Oh yeah, it shoots really high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's definitely out of the screen because we're up so high. This is not even in the screen. Desto-chan. Is that Pew Pew?
Not sure.
I think it's Pew Pew. Nobody else says Desto-chan. Win NATO. So I think we should just get a new map. This method like is really hard to use with NATO, because like the NATO amplifies the effect of the wind, right? So like the displacement is not going to be right. Like you can kind of use it with NATO, but you have to adjust for how the wind, like how the NATO amplifies the effect, and that's just like, even for me it's too hard. Let's just get a new map. Okay. Teach me a wise one. Oh, Law, you're too late. We're just practicing now. You can watch the recording if you want. Okay, hopefully this is no NATO. Okay, 12 wind. This is like maximum difficulty. Actually, I should move closer for you. Let me try shooting that guy. Okay, so 12 wind, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna aim for below the thing. So midpoint, somewhere there. 4 item boxes. It's really far. Okay, kind of okay, I guess. Yeah.
Oh.
4 item boxes is pretty far, so you gotta like pretend there's another item box, and use that as a guide. Why don't I use armor? I don't know. I like Desto better, okay? Desto way better than armor.
I was like, 4 item. I think I am.
Yeah, so like that direction of wind where you're shooting it, like it's really hard because you have to like imagine the line like extending further, and then remember like your line has to pass through that point where you would be aiming when you're playing racer, right? So sometimes that line is like in the ground or like off the screen, so it's hard to like you'll have to practice more to get those wins, definitely. Nice. Okay, let's try shooting Ice Storm. So Ice Storm's below me. The point that I'm aiming for is gonna, like, the target is gonna be like there-ish. So midpoint between there and there. Bottom of the item box. Top of the screen. Okay, got that calibrated. 7 is maybe that much. Come on. Okay, pretty close. Yeah, there's a lot of factors. So you'll need to practice with this method. It won't come on the first half hour you've learned it. So don't be too discouraged if it doesn't work right away. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna practice Desto. I'll probably do a tutorial on Desto at some point because how to get those perfect shots with them is a little different than normal. Yeah, that wasn't even close. The ruler overlay, I use it for certain mobiles. So I use it for blank. You can use it for eraser. Basically, it's the ruler is always the same. Like it doesn't change depending on how high you're shooting it, right? So it'll only really work for mobiles that have a set time for how long their shot takes. So like things like blank S2, eraser S2. Like I guess you could do it for Mage SS. But like for things like those, it helps. For other mobiles, maybe I guess if you're always shooting the same height, you could use the ruler. But if you're shooting different heights, then you're gonna have to adjust often. Okay, so 7 above midpoint is there. 2 item boxes and a bit.
Maybe these long distance shots are essentially, it's kind of imagining where the item boxes are, right?
Well, you can move the screen, right? You can like, after you calibrated the zoom, you can go and like slide the screen around so that your item boxes are like closer to your target. Okay, I'm gonna try to use this method for getting this shot perfect. So 4 is like centers there. And I want to move it there.
1 box and a third, or
1 box and a third, yep. So hopefully this is dead on. It wasn't. I'm gonna blame that on RNG.
Pew Pew send a link for something.
Pew Pew. Every long line is 2 ticks. Every long line is 2 ticks for full power. You mean 2 wind, or I mean, if you're gonna have to go at ticks, you're gonna have to convert ticks to wind, right? That's just kind of confusing. Oh, and like once you've calibrated the screen size, you can move the right, you're probably gonna move your aimer, right? Right, like to move to the right position, but try not to move the height too much, because the height again is how much the wind affects it. The best way to do it is like first kind of get a feel for where you're gonna have to aim, and move your aimer there already. And then you only hopefully you only have to move it a little bit after that, so you don't adjust the height too much. So it helps if you first have experience just shooting in general, so you kind of get a feel for where approximately you're gonna have to shoot. Right, because if you move your aimer too much, right, it's gonna adjust the height of your shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're saying as you adjust the screen, you're able to move your cursor as well?
Oh yeah, you can move the cursor, but try not to adjust the height too much, that's all. I'm trying to shoot myself. Oh, NATO, wild NATO appears. Yeah, do you want to quit now? Because the NATO.
Yeah.
Oh, like also if you need to go, I think we've been shooting for an hour.
Maybe a little bit longer.
Okay.
Seems okay.
We can have we can practice more like off camera if you want. Don't want to make the tutorial too long, because otherwise people wouldn't watch it.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, can you like clip it after, or is it just kind of whatever your
I think
stream
it's just however long the stream was.
Okay.
I could clip it, but I'm too lazy to do that.
It's actually a pretty good flat map to.
Yeah, this is pretty good. 8. So like shooting your armor, 2 and 2/3 boxes. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on the like the math so quickly. Like 8, 2 and 2/3. 6, 2 boxes. 12, 4 boxes. Nice.
That's probably all that I'm really caught up on. The rest, and I'm still trying to kind of figure out how to get to these reference points.
Yeah. It'll probably make you a worse shooter before it makes you better.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to figure out like how much I'm supposed to be kind of zooming. So I'm trying to line up the item boxes to, let's say, like the armor, like where his tires are.
Yeah. I couldn't get the right angle there.
So here, putting like the neck of where the ice storm is.
The neck of where the ice storm is. Yep.
That's like the bottom of the item boxes, right? And
nice. Six 2 item boxes.
when I notice your shot, you're actually not using the actual item box to like measure, like you're not moving the screen over.
Yeah, sometimes it's too hard to do that. Also, if it's like in a diagonal direction, it doesn't really help that much, right? To move the screen, it really helps if it's horizontal wind. But when it's diagonal wind, I kind of just eyeball it. Nice. Yeah, I didn't do that very well. I think I underestimated the 2 item boxes. Oh, also, if you're playing on a tablet, this method doesn't work. Sorry. The tablet dimensions are like, yeah, a lot different. I don't have a tablet, otherwise I'd probably try to figure out a method for tablet. But I'd have to buy a tablet.
Convert all your tournament wins into a tablet.
So the wind is down, so the target location is going to be above the actual mobile. So like there, And then 9 in that direction. Yes, pretty close.
Okay.
Stream some Octor. Pew Pew, did you find that on your your Peruvian Facebook groups?
Facebook group.
Vietnamese. Oh. What are you pretending to be on those? Vietnamese living in America. Oh yeah. Well, like all the good Vietnamese. I mean, all the good boomer players are Vietnamese, right? Okay, 9 wind up. Gotta zoom out a bit. There's the nozzle. 9 in that direction. So midpoint is around there. And 9, 3 item boxes. Oh, sorry, I killed you. Choose Vietnamese. Yeah, choose. He I think the reason why he hates boomers is because he sucks at it.
My adjustment here is not just distance, it's also the height.
Shot. Yeah. What was the hard one? Okay, so I'm imagining a point above the mage, maybe like where that foot thing is in the background. Okay, so then the midpoint between that and my nozzle, bottom, 4 item boxes. Okay.
That's one thing I actually have to learn is, based on the wind, how much I'm supposed to be compensating.
Yeah, you kind of have to have a feel first, like roughly where your target should be. And then you gotta like move your line there first so that you're not gonna be changing the height much after. Here, what do I have? This guy. We're moving it roughly there. Imagining a point, 12. Okay. 4 item boxes. Yeah, like at some point when you're doing this, it kind of just becomes a way to double check your feel. Because you have to have a pretty decent feel to like figure out how high you should be aiming first, right? Because you got to calibrate to the height first. Yeah, so it's kind of like a way to calibrate your feel. But yeah, like again, I said I use it a lot for really high winds. For low winds, I do tend to use it too if I'm like the first or second shot because I don't have a feel at that point yet. Afterwards, I might just go by feel. Also, it depends on like how good the opponents are. If they're like like silver dragons or whatever, I probably don't even bother. Yeah, it's more for like tough games where I know I can't miss. Then I'll like really spend my time taking every shot. Yeah, if you played with me enough, you know that like I tend to do better if I'm against better opponents. and then I tend to miss more against like just average opponents. It's because I'm not using this method against average opponents. I just shoot whatever.
So like everyone I face, because I'm so low, right? I'm kidding. Alright, yeah.
Nice. Oh yeah, so the armor SS, it always opens at the same time. So you can use kind of the abrasor method with that as well. If you figure out like what the distance is. It's all like the point where it opens is always the same. I'll just let you shoot.
I guess with this actually would work for Trico as well, right? Because of the shot type.
Yeah, well, it works for anybody, right? This method works for anybody. As long as they shoot like a normal parabola, it works. Other things to note. Yeah, I guess I should have mentioned this earlier because probably people have stopped watching by now. But if the wind is 10, like let's say you're shooting low, right, and you can't zoom in enough to like get your screen calibrated. You can use another way is just with the wind is 10, then half the height of your shot is how far the wind is pushing it. So let's say the wind is 5, then it's a quarter. So it's all about ratios, right? So
didn't quite catch that. What that meant.
Like let's say the wind. Let's say you're shooting low, right? Like let's say I'm just gonna shoot like that high. I obviously can't zoom in the screen enough for that, right? But then I can kind of see like how high I'm shooting. 10 wind is half the height, so 5 wind is a quarter of the height. Like 5, that's how far the wind will push it. You can kind of like just get that as a like into your feel, so that you can kind of use the same method for low shots, like really low shots as well. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm gonna end the stream. We can practice some more if you want, or if you want to go to bed. That's okay too. I'm probably gonna go eat.
This is helpful though. I mean, it'll take a lot of kind of learning, but it's a different style, right? Because going from like the tick method.
Yeah.
To this.
Yeah, and as far as I know, I'm the only person that used this because I figured it out, and I haven't told anybody.
Right.
So,
until now.
Yeah, until now. So you guys are getting some exclusive Falco secrets.
Right. Pew Pew's going to release it to the Peruvian community.
Pew Pew. Don't do it, Pew Pew. No, just kidding. It's. I think it's kind of hard to explain. So I'm kind of. I don't think Peruvians are going to pick up on it. It's not like uno dos tres, you know. Yeah. Sorry if that's disrespectful to the Peruvians. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Abcha, for being my helper. And yeah.
For showing us.
All right. Bye, guys.